Welcome to the Zencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Zencast and I'm also the managing director of B Squared. If you are a new listener, then welcome to the Zencast. The aim of this podcast is really simple. We want to reach lots and lots of people and help everyone learn, including me, more about special educational needs and disability. In this episode, we'll be discussing bipolar, what it is and what it isn't. My guest is Catrina Lowri, a neurodivergent former Senko and advisory teacher with a dual diagnosis of bipolar and dyslexia. She is the founder and director of NeuroTeachers, supporting schools and businesses to improve neuro-inclusion. The Zencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and I often talk about our assessment software because what everyone knows us for. I'm going to talk about Eversense. Eversense is our evidence and parental engagement tool. It feels like social media, so it's really easy for everyone, including the parents, to use and understand. It is extremely secure, however. It's a really safe place to share evidence of learning with parents or external professionals. And it's a great way to capture pupil voice because you can do it as a video, or you can use it as your homeschool diary or reading diary. Visit the B Squared website to find out more about Eversense, or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through what Eversense can do for you. Now, let's get on with the podcast. On this week's show, we're discussing being bipolar and why you shouldn't call my guest Catrina crazy. My guest is Catrina Lowri, the founder and director of NeuroTeachers. Catrina is a neurodivergent former Senko and advisory teacher with a dual diagnosis of bipolar and dyslexia. Catrina started NeuroTeachers to help schools and businesses to improve their neuro-inclusion. Welcome to the show, Catrina.
Hello, lovely to be back again.
You are welcome. And as I mentioned last time, I haven't recorded an episode on bipolar. And I personally do not know much about it, apart from maybe what I've seen in TV, even films and things like that. So let's start with, what is bipolar and do we call it a disorder?
Okay, so bipolar is a mental health condition where the person who has the diagnosis experiences bouts of depression and has experienced at least one bout of mania in their life. So depression is clinically described as where you have significant low mood for a period of at least 2 weeks. And it's not just feeling a little bit sad, it's to the point of dilapidation where perhaps you may not be able to get out of bed, shower, take part in the usual aspects of your day-to-day life. You may not be able to eat, not be motivated by things that you usually enjoy, and not be able, the main thing that I notice when it happens to me is not being able to find joy in the things that you usually like. So something that you would usually, like say your favorite food or something like that, would not entice you or appetize to you, or you wouldn't feel any kind of positivity towards it. And then in order for you to have a diagnosis of bipolar, you have to have had at least one manic episode. So mania is where you have extremes of heightened mood. So what happens in my experience is I get a little bit high where I'm a bit driven. So what will happen then is my brain starts to think really quickly. I can act really quickly. I can, stay up all night working. I can kind of like sail with the wind. I'm really motivated. Everything's brilliant. I'm really enjoying it. It's very exciting. And then it can just tip over very quickly into irritability, confusion, meltdown sort of situation. And then when it gets really bad, then you get to the point where you're having hallucinations. So these may be auditory or visual or a mixture of both. So I experience both of these things. We call this psychosis, when you have a significant period of time when you're hallucinating and you can't differentiate between, well, that's not really true. Okay, so in the diagnostic criteria, it says you can't differentiate between the two. In my experience, I know that there's not actually a lion coming out of the wall or roses growing out of the ceiling of my bedroom, because that's not actually possible. but they are very definitely there as far as I'm concerned.
And do they look realistic? So I remember talking to someone about this, and they were talking about how they look different, but they still believe. So as my question is, so they look like a real line coming through your wall, as it would, as if you just got some AI to go do me a video of a line coming out of a wall.
Yeah, the sad thing about it is, and this is probably good and bad, is I'm not very good at art, right? So I would love to be able to do a visual representation of what I experienced. But even if I recreated it with AI, I couldn't make it look like it looks to me. Insofar as it's kind of, the lion is sort of part of the wall, except the wall is lion shaped but 3-dimensional and definitely a lion. Does that make any sense? I'm sure there's somebody out there who's got really good artistic, who could do, like, I can go, it's a bit like this and a bit like this, and they could recreate it. But I personally do not have the artistic ability to be able to recreate what I'm seeing.
So the visuals, you're going, okay, yeah, and that isn't happening.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it. What about with the sounds? Is that the same?
Okay, so, right. There are going to be parts of this that are going to sound really funny, right? And to an extent, it is funny, except that until to the point where it gets absolutely terrifying, right?
Yep.
So my last manic episode was in spring, summer of 2021. And how I first knew about it was I started to get auditory hallucinations. And what it was the song by Oasis, Cigarettes and Alcohol on a continuous loop. But it's not like an earworm, right? It's like it's actually playing all of the time. And it's not even just like it's playing like it's on the stereo or on the radio or, on a podcast or whatever. It's like they're there, right? And
so is it like when you're in a film and they've got the music playing and they're walking down the road and you got them? Is it like that it's just I've no idea where it's coming from, but it's here?
Yeah, but I know it's in my head because it's definitely not outside my head. So the thing is about it, right? So how I know this is a hallucination, and this is such a hard thing to describe. I don't like Oasis. I saw them live once, and they were very rude and arrogant, right? So I'm not a fan of them anymore. And also, I don't actually know the lyrics to Cigarettes and Alcohol.
So is it?
Yeah. So I described this to a psychiatric nurse, and he reacted the same way that you did, by giggling. But the thing is, it is funny, right? It's really, really funny. But at the same time, it's really, really terrifying.
But that's the thing, I'm laughing at you, even though this happened and this was a really... But I literally sort of going, the way the mind works, if it's chosen a song, not that you know perfectly, but you kind of know, but not all the words, and it's not playing the correct version, it's playing that weird version. And it's like occasionally when you watch a TV program, and that character, I'm watching The Boys at the moment, I'm on season 4. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you watch The Boys.
No, I haven't watched it yet, no.
There's a bit where he's hallucinating. He's like, yes, I'm not here. I'm in your head, you idiot. And I'm the person you brought back, even though you hate me. And it was just like, why does it do those things to you?
I know, but the thing is as well, like, this is what I have to explain is, I know it was the correct words of Cigarettes and Alcohol, but I don't know. I couldn't sing along with it, right? I don't know it, but my brain, whatever the hallucination.
So it was the correct words.
The correct words to Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Wow.
I could say to people, this is the lyric, da 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 da. But now, if you ask me, I couldn't sing it to you or anything like that. But
your subconscious brain can play it to you.
My subconscious brain can play it to me loudly, continuously for 24 hours on a continuous loop.
Is it the whole song, or is it
the whole song from start to finish? Yeah.
Wow. Because I was literally having flashbacks to being on a school trip with my daughter and her class, and they knew the only one line of London's Burning. So they sung it constantly because we were going to London. And that was horrible because it was just the same line over and over again. So I can imagine, but obviously, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Also, the other thing about it is it doesn't stop whilst you're asleep. So it can continuously play through your dreams as well.
So when you're asleep, you're drifting to sleep, you get to sleep, you get in some dream, and it's the same song there.
Playing the entire time, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really frightening because you can't get away from it. Like there's nothing you can do about it. It's just there. And the thing is as well, like at that point when that was happening to me, I didn't tell anyone. But then the next thing that happened was the bricks in the wall were turning like they were cogs, and I could hear the bricks moving in the wall. So it's like, if you have the sound of grinding together two bricks,
Yeah.
if you can imagine that, like how that was, so that sort of like Oasis developed into that. And then I started to see things, and what I could see was bubble gum coming out from the mortar between the bricks in the wall, even if it wasn't a bare wall. So like if you had a wall that had plaster on it, I could still see like bubble gum coming out of the bricks between the wall, even though I obviously don't know the shape and size of the brick, and you can't look at a wall and tell whether it's breeze blocks or whatever. But
you were seeing traditional bricks with bubblegum coming out.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and it got a lot worse from there, really. So that was the last time I had a manic episode, which was in 2021. There isn't a lot of treatment, really. Psychiatric services being massively, massively overstretched, and bipolar not being, even amongst psychiatrists, it's a little bit pick and mix as to what they give you in terms of medication, because the medication that you take is very heavy duty stuff. There's only certain medications that your GP can supply for it. I've tried about 8 different ones before I got to the one that I'm taking. So what they usually tend to do, one of the main problems with the mania, besides the fact that it's fun until it's absolutely terrifying, right? And it's not just terrifying for you. You're so erratic at that point that it's very, very frightening for the family and friends who are around you. So what they tend to do is they start off by giving you some sleep medication, because one of the things about bipolar is it's really, really, the mania in particular is really triggered by lack of sleep. So they usually give you a sleep medication. When I got to my worst, it was actually on a Sunday, and my husband, then partner, phoned 111 and got through, and they said, okay, we've got somewhere that can give you a prescription for it. So I went to get the prescription for it, and they literally gave me a prescription for 1 tablet. So I went to the pharmacy and they just went, here you go, because it's like really heavy duty stuff, and because you're a suicide risk, so they can't give you more than one. So they literally gave me a prescription for 1 tablet so I could get some sleep. And I was a bit better the next morning, but because I'd had a bit of sleep, so everything had sort of dialed down a bit. But then you phone the crisis team, and it varies very much from area to area. At this point, I was in rural Gloucestershire, and they have an okay service. So they send 2 psychiatric nurses round to do an assessment with you. And they basically just visit you twice a day to check that you're not a danger to yourself and society, really, because potentially you could be. And I needed to see a psychiatrist because I needed to get some antipsychotic medication, but they can't prescribe it. I think some psychiatric nurses can prescribe some medication, but they need a doctor really to prescribe the antipsychotic medication, because it's really heavy duty stuff, and it's controlled. Yeah. So the problem is, because it was a rural area, and I had got to my worst point of the manic episode on a Sunday. They only have a duty psychiatrist on for half a day on a Wednesday every second week.
Wow.
So I wasn't on the right week. So I had to wait until the following Wednesday to see a psychiatrist.
I wonder what he's doing for the rest of the 9.5 days.
But yeah, she worked part-time and had small children, which is fair enough. Everyone's allowed to do that. That's fine. But it isn't enough psychiatric cover for a large part of rural Gloucestershire.
No.
To have one duty psychiatrist on that's on for half a day. And like the thing is as well, what if you can't get an appointment with her? Then you have to wait another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And specifically Wednesday morning as well. And she had to come to the house. And she was lovely, really, really good. But I was, by this point, really, really very unwell indeed. Not to the point where I was able to be sectioned. I have been sectioned, by the way, in case you want that story. But this time they didn't consider me to be bad enough. And I had people around me because my parents were coming up from Cardiff every day. And my then partner was able to take some time off work. So they considered that there was enough people around me to keep me safe. But it was incredibly stressful for them because obviously, like, you know, I was hearing the bricks move. And there was the lions and the roses and all the other stuff going on. So it was really quite distressing. And when she did give me the medication, the one that she gave me was this one called cadiopin, which is very sedative based. And I'm extremely sensitive to medication. So the dose that she prescribed for me quite literally floored me. So as soon as I took it, I pretty much collapsed on the floor and could not get off the floor because it just knocked me out completely. And my dad and my partner, he's my husband now. I'm going to call him my husband from now on because it's just silly swapping between being historic. They basically decided that they couldn't look after me where I was and needed more help because my sister and my brother-in-law live here in Cardiff, which is where I live now. So they got me into the car. I have absolutely no recollection of this because I was just completely out cold from this medication. And it took them, it took several weeks for them to get the levels right. But for about 2 weeks, I was just completely out of it from this medication. But I wasn't hallucinating anymore. So that was better. And so they put me down. They discovered I was on 3 times the dose I needed to be on. So they gave me a lower dose of this. And then I was on that for around about 6 months. But it was to the point where if I took it downstairs, I wouldn't be able to walk up the stairs.
Wow.
That's how sedatizing it was for me. Right. And it's known to be quite heavy duty, but I was very unwell. So I don't regret having taken that, but it was at the point where, like, you know, my now husband had to take my daughter to school because I couldn't physically get out of bed because I was basically polaxed for like 12 hours after taking it. So I had to take it at 10. I could not physically get out of bed until at least 10 o'clock in the morning. And it makes me put on weight and there's other side effects to it. So then I swapped to another medication, because that was too sedative, really, for me. So I swapped to another amipriptyl, which made me really, 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 really anxious, just unspeakably anxious. So that was to the point where, like, I had the dog in the boot of the car, and I was really worried that the boot of the car was going to fling open, and the dog was going to fall out. So I was on a country lane, right? So I had to stop the car, go and check that it was. Obviously, this really annoyed all the other drivers and everything like that. But I was in such, like, I was convinced that the car, like, was going to open. And it just got to the point where I couldn't do anything because I was so anxious. So I went again for another medication review. And now I'm on one called lamotrigine. And lamotrigine is also used for epilepsy. So it's anticonvulsive, but it can be used as an antipsychotic medication. And it's probably the best one that I've ever been on. But it's quite dangerous. You can't stop it immediately because it can give you an epileptic fit or it can send you into a coma. So you can't, like, you'd have to titrate yourself off really, really carefully with it. Because if you stop it, then that's what can happen to you.
I suppose with all these different medications, each one has a benefit and a cost.
Yeah.
And you've got to weigh all of those up. Yeah,
and it's a very, very personal decision with any kind of mental health difficulty or neurodivergent need. Like, you know, for example, like I said, I've inattentive ADHD. I can't take ADHD medication because I'm on this medication, you see. So I wouldn't be able to take that. So it's a choice of, like, what is the most dilapidating, what's the most disabling. And the most disabling thing is the mania, because I can just about live with the depression. But this one, as a mood stabilizer, cuts off the top of the mania to the point where I can get driven, but I do get driven. I get quite driven in summer in particular when there's long days. That's very hard to say whether it's the ADHD brain or the bipolar brain, but that's a whole other, co-occurring
Yes.
conditions podcast. And actually as well, interestingly, bipolar and ADHD are quite commonly co-occurring. Something like
That's interesting.
And yeah.
Because when you talk about getting driven and getting really, I'm going, yeah, I do that. But I suppose the difference is I'm going to say you're like on a really narrow ridge, and you're basically trying to stay balanced on it. And any rock you drop, you're falling off, and it goes. Whereas I don't think I don't have that thing. I can just. I don't think once you're off, you're clambering to get back, and you're getting. Yeah, it's really. That's when you were saying it. That's what I was visioning.
It is. It's like that. You get to the point where, like, it's really good. You've got a great view from there, but you could just fall into the precipice. Before you know it, there's lines coming out the wall, and Oasis are playing 24/7, even in your dreams.
Yeah, that's not good.
And the other thing as well I should say about that song is I don't drink or smoke. So that song, why that song? That makes no sense to me. That's what I start off going, why is this happening to me? Because I don't like Oasis. I don't know the words to this song, and I don't drink or smoke. So why that song?
But I'd wish we could almost like wish we were in the Matrix, so I could just go like pause. Right, let's get my my wiki out. Why cigarettes and alcohol?
Yeah.
Okay, when I was 12, this happened. Did it? Let me watch that.
Yeah.
Don't remember that, but and why the lion in the wall? Oh, when you were 9. I'd love to be able to find out why are you doing that to me.
No one ever gives you those explanations. Nobody ever does that. I mean, to be honest, right? Like, the NHS have saved my life on numerous occasions, not just because of mental health, but also physical health. Like I said, I was sectioned when I was 22 because I was extremely manic. That was the worst one I've ever had, actually, because I only had really 2 really big periods where I've been extremely unwell with the mania. Mostly I can rule it back in. And there was about 8 years when I wasn't medicated at all. So I just walked the tightrope because there's so many side effects with the medication at that point. And also as well, like conceiving a child, like, when I was going to have my daughter. Do you want to hear my story about bipolar and fertility treatment?
Go on then. I bet, is it a case because my colleague John, who has some form of arthritis with his knee and stuff, and he's on really heavy duty meds, and it was like, yeah, if you're going to have kids, you're going to have to stop.
Yeah.
But we can't just stop.
No.
It's like a 6-month plan. And it was just like, it literally started turning into a military operation of we need a year's notice if you want to have kids, because we've got to get it all ready and get it all out, stop you off. And then you've got to wait another 6 months for it to be flushed out your system. And then you can start. Wow.
Yeah, it does do it. Yeah, there was a whole other thing, really. So, okay, journey through time. Right, I probably started to notice that I was having hallucinations when I was around about sort of like 16, 17, which was at the kind of time when, you start getting dabbling in, alcohol and cannabis in my case, and, cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. So, having a good time. I grew up in the 90s. It was quite hedonistic to be a teenager during those times.
It was great.
I had a lovely, lovely time. But I probably did quite a lot of reckless things, partly because we now know I'm ADHD, but also because we now know I'm bipolar. And I did quite a lot of things which would be considered to be risk-taking behaviour. Didn't get arrested, didn't get pregnant under the age of 16 either or anything. But, I definitely walked a line of doing some things that were quite reckless. And at that point, particularly if I hadn't slept particularly well, then I'd start to notice that there were hallucinations. And I probably have been having hallucinations my entire life, but I didn't really realize that they were hallucinations until I was in my late teens. And particularly when I first went to uni, I was living in halls of residence. It was really noisy. There was a lot of parties going on. We had a bar in the basement, That's when it started to get really hallucinate-y, if you see what I mean. But I could control it, because what would happen was I'd get to the point of getting really tired, and then I'd just sleep for 24 hours, just miss lectures, miss everything. And it would get to the point. So when I sleep deeply, like there's one time when I stayed in my friend's room. There was a whole bunch of us. We had a party, and I slept on the floor, like just on the floor on a coat, as you do when you're like 18.
Yeah.
And it was 2:00 in the afternoon. Everyone else had gone home. They still couldn't wake me up.
Wow.
Because like, that's when I get it to the point of exhaustion, you cannot wake me up. Right. Especially if I've been partying for a few days, like I am just unstirable. And if I did that, then it would reset. So it was okay. And then life events happened. And when I was, managed to get my degree somehow, I only got a 2:2, but I was partying hard in the 90s. So that's pretty good, really. That's like a first in like normal times.
Good old Desmond.
I went to a lot of gigs. I had a lovely, lovely time. But, you have to hang up your dancing trousers at some point, don't you? So I had to give all that up, But yeah, so when I was 21, I moved to Leeds to do my PGCE. And during my PGCE, I had a car accident. And it was a very bad car accident, but I was entirely unhurt by it. The car got T-boned coming off the motorway at 70 miles an hour, and it rolled several times.
Wow.
So I ended up lying on the side in the car, and I was completely unscathed. The real reason was because it was a Volvo, right? But to my brain, it was because I was impervious.
Yeah.
So at that point, right, so like I have this kind of visual memory of I was in the car on the side, my passenger then next to me, but we both had seatbelts on, right? Car had a sunroof above, and this woman came up and went, "Are you okay? I've called an ambulance. Are you okay? Stay there, don't move." And I went, "No, I want to get out. I'm going to get out the sunroof." So I took my shoe off with the high heel and tapped around the outside of the glass and pushed the glass through. So the glass fell out, and then I got out of the car and my passenger got out. I went and stood on the pavement, and I was completely and utterly unscathed. I had no mark on me, nothing, right? The car was absolutely mangled to bits, right? If you can imagine a car that's been T-boned and rolled 3 times. And the sunroof was all smashed up and the windscreen was all smashed up. But I wanted to get out because I could see that there was petrol running out of it, and I was really worried that it was going to do a boom thing like it does on movies. So I went and stood on the pavement, and ambulances came, and fire engines came, and police came, and there was all these people and all this activity, and I was just standing there looking at it. And then there's this ambulance driver, paramedic guy go, "Where's the driver of the Volvo? Where's the driver of the Volvo?" running around. And I went, "Oh, that's me." And he said, "Are you okay? I need to check you over." And I went, "No, I'm fine. Look, I didn't even skag my tights." And he went, "Well, we need to check you over. You need to come to hospital. We need to check that you're okay." And I went, "I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Look, absolutely fine." And I just called a taxi and went home during all of this. And so physically, I was absolutely fine. And within 2 weeks, I was having the worst manic episode of my entire life. And I had basically convinced myself that I was impervious to metal. And I just used to walk in front of cars because nothing could happen to me, because I'd survived that accident. So, nothing was going to happen to me. And I'd walk across like dual carriageways and stuff. And at that point, I was having really significant hallucinations and, annoying my poor housemates to death because I was running up and down stairs all night trying to get tired so I would go to sleep. And I got really, really unwell. And then I had an argument with one of my housemates, and I slammed the kitchen door so hard that the glass fell through. Like I slammed it really, really. I mean, I don't know how you even do that, but I slammed it so hard that the glass fell through. And she shouted at me and said, "Get out of here, you crazy B word." Right. So I gathered up my keys and my purse and everything. And I went running out of the door, and I went and bought a bottle of brandy. I don't know why, because I don't even like brandy, and some cigarettes. And I just ran around Leeds, running in front of cars for about 24 hours. I'm not even sure how long. And I sort of like turned up in front of this doctor surgery by my university. And I was walking just like erratically in front of cars. I don't know what I must have looked like. And this woman, I just remember very distinctly her being in a red coat, came up to me and said, "I don't think you're very well. I'm the doctor's receptionist. Can you come in for a bit so we can see whether you can talk to one of the doctors?" And something in me just decided to trust this woman. So I don't really remember exactly, but I went in and I saw a doctor and I explained, and what had happened was I was already on antidepressant medication. I was on Prozac at the time, and I'd started to get a bit more depressed just before I had the car accident. And so they doubled my dose. And like I said, I'm really, really sensitive to medication. At that point, we didn't know I was bipolar. And one of the things about Prozac is it's this thing called SSRI. So it affects the serotonin in your brain. And if you are bipolar, then it can trigger a manic episode. So antidepressants aren't indicated for people who are bipolar. But at the time, they didn't know. Right. And like I said, it's a little bit suck it and see when it comes to the medication.
Yeah.
There is no blood test. There's no way they can tell whether it's going to work. They go, well, this might work. Do you want to try it? Well, I'm really sick, so I probably should try the medication. So I took this and it just basically, like, I just went on a massive rampage around Leeds. And if that woman in the red coat hadn't helped me, I probably would have killed myself. And that's the truth. I mean, I sound like I'm being glib about it, but it was a life-changing experience meeting her. I don't know her name, but I'm hugely grateful to her.
So what I have learned is so far you are impervious to metal because you did survive that walking around Leeds.
I know. And I was really drunk.
And you realise you're not. You're literally just going, how did nothing happen?
I know. But anything could happen to me. I was so vulnerable. Anything could happen to me, but I didn't. It didn't. So it is quite miraculous, really. Anyway, they put me into hospital for a couple of weeks to try and find out what medication would work for me. And, because to keep me safe, right? In those days, there was some funding for this. So it was easier. It was much easier to get put into hospital. And it was really nice. It was really nice and calm there. And it was, I had my own room. And it wasn't luxurious or anything, but it was really comfortable. And it was for the first time in months I'd felt calm. And I had nice food. We had apple pie one day. That was good. Also, they took us bowling. That was fun.
It's amazing when I find I don't know, I think ADHD probably is something to do with that or the autism, but I kind of don't notice things. So talk about medication is my wife will have 2 tablets and it will then send her really funny. If I have Red Bull, it doesn't really impact me. If my friend talks about when he goes to the gym and doesn't stop going, he feels it. I don't feel any of it. I almost like I don't know what my body's feeling and things like that. And I'll be sitting there somewhere and I'll just be sitting there going, why do I feel quite relaxed right now? And I'll sit there and have to process and think about it and going, because it's really quiet and you're sitting on a comfy chair and you've had a really busy... And I have to really think about, why am I feeling so good right now? But it's amazing. I sit there and just go, hang on, I'm feeling really good. Why is that?
Yeah, no,
I'm just not aware.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. It was just like, I suddenly just went, oh. And they took me off the Prozac, which I think was probably the best move for me. Look, right, I'm not anti-medication. If you are depressed, if you have anxiety, if that is indicated for you, then absolutely take that medication because it's the right thing for you. But for me, it's dangerous, right? There's the potential if I take SSRIs, if I take antidepressants, there's a very good potential that I will become manic. And if I do that, that is the life-threatening one for me, because that is when I'm likely to just do something completely reckless and walk off a cliff because I think I can fly or whatever. And that I haven't had that delusion, but people do have the flying delusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they gave me this medication called thyroidazine, which is now banned. It was really nice, though. I really enjoyed that one. So it was basically it was an anti-anxiety medication, and it made the world really soft and bouncy and everything really easy. It took the edges off everything.
But there was obviously some downside.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can give you a heart attack. So, and I think it was also the reason that they banned it was because of the kidneys. It did something horrible to your kidneys. So yeah, so I can't have that anymore. But that was my favorite medication I've ever had, just because it really did chill me out in a for real way. but it's banned now, so you can't have it anymore. And then I spent years and years, because they thought that at this point they still didn't think I had bipolar. I spent years and years thinking that I had depression, and that it was just a bad reaction to Prozac. So I tried all kinds of different SSRIs, I think about 8 different ones. And then I just went, look, none of this is working. I'm going to stop. And I tried to do everything with lifestyle and diet. The way you do, the way everyone tells you, oh my goodness, if you tried
drink lots of water.
If you drink plenty of water. Oh, this is the joke that my husband also has mental health difficulties. And this is the joke that we have. Like, when you call the crisis team, they are lovely people, but they have nothing, right? They have nothing they can do. They can't do anything, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Psychiatric nurses, care workers, all of that, hugely important people. If you are listening, I have all the love in the world for you. But you've got nothing, have you? You haven't got anything. Nothing you can do, right? Apart from be there and make sure I don't kill myself. Really, you have nothing, okay? So what they always say, this is a bit of a joke, right? And I'm in no way deriding mental health professionals at all, okay? But I'm just going to give you this. This is the armor that they have. These are the things that they can offer you. They suggest that you go for a long walk.
I'm playing bingo.
Yeah, you have a nice cup of tea.
Yes.
Or you have a long bath, right? So we always say, oh, I'm going to go for a long walk and a bath of hot tea. That'll cure me.
The thing is, I think it's something about maybe being neurodiverse where you kind of go through everything and then call.
Yeah.
Whereas I think some people just go, oh, I need to call someone and call without. So that's the thing is I'm that person that whenever I call someone, they go, have you tried this? It's like, yes, I've done the first 32 steps of troubleshooting this problem myself by Googling. And I've had the cup of tea, I've done the long bath, and I've done a walk. I've done all of that. I've done this. That still hasn't helped. I need the next bit. They're like, we've got to start at step 1. I'm going, oh. But that's with so many things that it's the way I work. I literally will go, what are 10 things which will help? Yeah, done all them. Next.
The thing is, you're so used as a neurodivergent person, right? And okay, so I'm just going to go on a little slight tangent and then circle back to what you said, because, neurodivergent mind. Right. As far as I'm concerned, hereditary mental health conditions such as bipolar are neurodivergent conditions, right? And I'm going to tell you why, because I'm a neurodiversity specialist and I'm neurodivergent, and I say so, therefore it's true. Okay, that's mainly the reason, but also as well the research and the research and the training and the so on and so forth that I've had is that neurodivergence is a social construct, and what it means is the mind and brain has developed differently. One of the things you can say about bipolar people is definitely our minds and brains have developed differently. Therefore, bipolar is a neurodivergent condition. Now, there's a lot of people with neurodivergent conditions who don't like mental health being described as a neurodivergent condition because they say it's episodic, right? You have episodes of being depressed and episodes of being manic. Yeah, I do. But on all the other days in between, still bipolar.
But also, mental health is like physical health.
Yeah.
My physical health isn't the best. Some days I go to the gym. I need to do that a lot more. I'm starting up again. And I'm getting my health better. But saying I have mental health, everyone has mental health.
Yeah.
What we're really saying, we're saying mental health is I've not great mental health.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I was insanely happy all the time, I would still have mental health issues.
Yeah. It's like saying you got a temperature. You got a temperature all the time. If you didn't have a temperature, then you'd be dead.
Yes.
Right? So,
even when you're dead, you still have a temperature.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to feel it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be like a human temperature. It'd be like a dead person temperature. It's still a temperature though, And it's the same, it's a similar sort of thing. Is right. I'm bipolar all the time. There are strengths about being bipolar. I wouldn't want to change it. Like there are with all my other neurodivergent conditions. There are strengths with it, like the creativity, the imagination, the ability to see the world in a different way. Right. Those are cool things. And I like those. And like I said, I like it when I get driven, especially in summer, because I can get loads of stuff done. And that's really useful. But it's when it gets to the scary point, then I don't like it anymore. And that's when I want help. And I have tons of coping strategies. I'm 49 years old and I'm still alive.
I'm trying to work out, I was up my analogies. And I'm going to say it's like that neurodiversity is almost like your first rubbish car. Now, first rubbish car these days is still an amazing car. first rubbish car for me only had one wing mirror, had a coat hanger for an aerial. It didn't have FM radio, only seatbelts in the front, even though they were kind of, but it was amazing because it gave me things. But there were all these quirks and you had to learn. And I think my wife's car, on hers, the back seat wouldn't stay up. So she had to wedge folders behind it for it to stay up.
Yeah.
I think to me, like, that neurodiversity is, here's your car. And it's great because I've got the freedom. I can go down wherever I want at any time I want. But I've got to learn that the back seat's going to fall down. I've got to learn this. I can't do this. And it's not a perfect car. You see someone else driving in their car. But but my car is my car.
Yeah.
And all of its weird quirks, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And I wouldn't have changed that car for any other car.
No, totally. That's exactly what it is. Insofar as I don't want to not be bipolar, I just don't want it to scare the living daylights out of me.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be thoroughly unpleasant for my loved ones when I'm around them because they're trying to stop me from throwing myself out the window. You know, that's not very nice.
So it's interesting because I know nothing about bipolar, and there have been some celebrities like Kerry Katona, from Atomic Kitten. She's bipolar, and almost like the way it was talked about in the news, or the way I interpreted what they were saying, it was like a toss of a coin. You woke up, and that day you could be happy or you could be sad. It was almost like a daily thing. It's kind of how I visioned it in my head, because at 1 minute she's fine and then she's not. And I'm like, oh, so it's a switch thing. It's like...
No, there are different types, yeah?
Okay.
There's one called rapid cycling, right? So there are people who go manic, depressed, manic, depressed, manic, depressed. I don't know Kerry Katona really personally. Seen her in the papers, loved her in Atomic Kitten, don't know her personally. And I'm not a psychiatrist either, but it's possible that she has rapid cycling type, which means that she is up and down more regularly. And it's not just up and down. Oh, I'm a bit up and down. How are you? I'm a bit up and down, actually, love. No, it's like, you know, hallucinating 1 minute and then the next minute not being able to even like have a shower or whatever. Yeah. So potentially she may have that type, right? There's like type 1 and type 2, which don't really understand the difference. But one of them means the one that I have means you have had at least one episode of mania in your life. So I probably have had more than 2, but I've had 2 where I've been under medical treatment really, really poorly. So I don't know. I mean, there are different types and everybody's experience is going to be slightly different. So there's some people who only get auditory hallucinations. Some people only get visual. Some people, it's not exactly like a hallucination. It's more like there's something going on around the corner that's really terrifying. So it's different for different people. And like, you know, like I said, right. So you get all the lifestyle people who want to go, oh, you know, yoga would be really good. A gong bath would be really good. Bone broth would sort you out. Yeah. It's because you're vegan. That's why. Yeah. It's because I'm vegan. Yeah. Wasn't vegan when I first started all of this. Let me tell you.
No, if you just said you're vegan at the beginning, I could have cured you. We just said, have a steak. It'd be fine.
Here you go, right? We go down the Angus Steakhouse, be fine. That's it. It's never going to happen again. Whoa, you fixed it. Woohoo! Fixed it for the whole of medical science. Thank you so much. Yes. It's
the peppercorn sauce on the steak. That's what you probably missed. That's the cure.
It's like people want to tell you a cure. Yeah. And this is the thing. This is one of the things I was talking to my mum, who's a psychiatrist, by the way. I was talking to her about this yesterday. And I have really there is no support. I think I said that about 10 minutes ago. There is no support. I'm sorry, right? But there isn't. Okay. I've looked time and time again. There are times when sometimes I would like to be able to talk to other bipolar people just so they can say, yeah, me too. But the problem is whenever I find groups of bipolar people, if you are a group of bipolar people who doesn't do this, I would love to meet you. But there are 2 things they talk about: medication and self-medication, right? I don't want to have an extensive conversation about my medication. It goes like this. What are you on? I'm on lamotrigine. Is it working okay? It's all right. Put on 3 stone. But other than that, okay. Haven't killed myself. So yay. That's the end of my conversation on medication. My conversation on self-medication is absolutely not, under no circumstances. No, I do not want to try microdosing. No, I'm not going to go on an ayahuasca journey. Right? No. Okay. whatever your magic mushroom cure is for me, there's absolutely under no circumstances am I going to take anything, especially that's an hallucinogen, because I can hallucinate on a daily. I don't need your stuff.
I don't need any extra help.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Absolutely not. Right. And what do I think of the idea of other people doing it? Well, if you want to and it's under medical supervision, then you go ahead and try that acid. If you want to, I am not advocating for that in any way, but you're an adult. I'm presuming that you know what you're doing, right? It's illegal, by the way, but if you feel strongly that you want to do it, go ahead, but do not tell me that that's what I need in order to cure myself, because you're not my psychiatrist.
It's interesting. You're talking about everything you talked about is this balance of pros and cons and this and that and working out the right medication and, like I say, misdiagnosis. It was just depression. But then all of that is a really long journey, which is going to be very personal.
Yes.
And you are literally balancing chemicals inside your head.
Yeah.
You are balancing chemicals.
Don't mess with it and go, oh, ayahuasca, it's been around for thousands of years. The Aztecs used to take it, or, name ancient civilization here. I'm not sure if it was the Aztecs, but it was somebody in the Mesoamerican era. Anyway, just because they did it doesn't mean it's going to work for me now, because my brain is different to their brain. So
Yes.
maybe let's not do these things without being prescribed. Okay, yeah. So I was going to tell you the whole fertility treatment and bipolar thing, wasn't I? About 10 minutes ago. So I didn't actually get a diagnosis of bipolar until I was 32, and I was about to start fertility treatment. And if you've ever had fertility treatment, you have to have huge numbers of interviews about stuff that are way above and beyond what you'd have to have if you had a biological child. So one of the parts of that is about your mental health. And they said, okay, well, we've noticed that you've had these bouts of mental health. The medication that you're going to have to take might affect your mental health. So we need you to go and see a psychiatrist. So I went to see a psychiatrist. I thought it was bipolar, right? And I went to see a psychiatrist. Anyway, it was supposed to be to do an assessment to find out how to support me through taking IVF medication. And it ended up being a diagnosis of bipolar. And he spent about the first hour telling me, doing the interview to find out if I was bipolar, then told me I was bipolar, and then spent about 2 hours telling me what a bad idea it'd be for me to get pregnant and how it could be extraordinarily dangerous for me to have a baby just before I'm about to start fertility treatment. So that was nice.
Nice.
So it basically, if you are bipolar and you get pregnant, you can have this thing called puerperal psychosis. So that means that during labor, you go into psychosis. So you have a psychotic episode during labor.
I'm a bloke and I already know, and I've been present at both my daughter's births.
Yeah.
That's not going to be good.
No, it's not really something that you need on top of everything else that's going on during labor. So he told me that there was a high risk of me having that.
Just what you really want.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's. I remember we did the NCT antenatal classes, which told me the childbirth was going to be amazing. Then we went to the NHS one. Your wife is going to lose 2 pints of blood minimum. Your wife is going to have, I'm literally going, I didn't know we were going into a war zone.
Yeah, I know. So that wasn't really great. So he said, okay, so what you could do is you can start antipsychotic medication before you start having the treatment. You can start taking it if and when you get pregnant, or you can start taking it after you have the baby. Which would you prefer? And I went, okay, well, just tell me all the risks of that. And I've had miscarriages, and there's a high risk of miscarriage. So I decided that I wasn't going to take it. He said, okay, then, well, what we'll need to do is if you do get pregnant, then we're going to need to take you to the perinatal, move you over to the perinatal team. So I went, thank you very much, goodbye. And then I went back to work in the afternoon.
Nice, easy conversation, straight back into work.
Yeah, and told no one about it. Told my then husband, my now ex-husband, my then husband, I told about it, and my parents. My parents are psychiatrists anyway. That was it. Didn't tell anyone. Told no one about it. Had no discussion with anybody. Got no support. Nothing. It was just, right, you're bipolar, off you pop. You don't want any medication? All right, bye.
That's not good.
No, it's not. And there haven't been any. I've seen that psychiatrist twice since. And he's a very nice chap. But no, there's nothing really. There's nothing they can really do about it apart from give you medication. That's it. And they offer CBT on the NHS. That's the only type of therapy that you can get really in most areas on the NHS. And I don't know, do you know anything about CBT?
Not huge amounts.
So it's cognitive behavioral therapy. So the idea of it is that you identify what they call the hot thought. So the thought that's causing you difficulty, you identify, and then you use tools that are basically rationalizing in order to reduce the impact of the thought. And then you measure the thought after you've done that piece of work. I mean, I'm massively oversimplifying here, but like, say, for example, you were afraid a dog was going to bite you, right? But the dog's like a tiny little puppy that's barely got any teeth, right? So you look at it and go, on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you that the dog's going to bite you? I'm 8, right? Let's look at the dog. Is it capable of biting you? No. If it bites you, is it really going to hurt? No, it's a puppy. How anxious do you feel now? Only 6. There you go. So it's called mind over mood, and it's about thinking your way logically out of an emotional state, which is really good if you're relatively regulated. So you're just a bit wobbly, yellow zone, then you can probably think yourself back into it. So it's a useful tool, right, in some circumstances, but it ain't going to help mania in the slightest. It's not going to help depression, like proper full on can't get out of bed. Listening to The Cure on the loop sort of thing. No, it's not going to help, right? But that's all they've got, really, is that. And I've had that I've had hour upon hour upon hour of CBT, and I can think myself out of a situation when I have the capacity to think. Yeah, absolutely. But that's it, really. But it's the only thing that's available because it's relatively cheap to do, and it has some evidence base. So it's about 60% effective, right?
And that sort of logic process helps in a lot of different places as well.
Yeah, it does. It's a useful thing to have, right, for adult life and so on, just for adulting generally. It's quite good to be able to, think your way out of a situation. I've got quite a good frontal lobe in my head. I'm quite smart, so that's okay. But the way I said to my mum yesterday is, CBT is all very well. A whisk is great for beating eggs, but it's not very good for mashing potatoes. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it is a tool that you can use, but it isn't all the tools.
Can you just let her know that my friend whisks his potatoes?
Really? No way.
My kids are really, they don't like the texture. And he going, I'll do you my mashed potato. And they ate it. And I'm like, what did you do? He goes, we whisk it. And I'm like, okay. So you can whisk potatoes.
It's not going to mash them though, is it?
It's nice and creamy.
But do you squish it down like that? I mean, like, how do you mash a potato with a whisk?
You stick an electric whisk in.
Oh, I see. Right, I meant like a hand whisk.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be you'd have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger to do that.
Like, you'd be squishing it down, that's not very good. But yeah, I mean, like, it's a tool, yeah. So you can use a knife to cut stuff with, but it's not very good for eating peas with. Do you see what I mean? It's one tool that you get given, and that's all you, over and over again, that's what you get given by the NHS. So would you like some CBT? And I'm like, no, thank you. And then last time,
cup of tea,
walk. Nice walk get some fresh air, that'll help. Nice bath, that'll work. And that's all they've got, I'm afraid. Or some leaflets. They can give you some leaflets. Give you leaflets a lot. Here's some leaflets about anxiety. Oh, thank you so much. And I'm not disparaging the individuals. I'm not at all, right? I love them all, and they have saved my life. And I'm ever so grateful for everything that's happened to me. But it isn't like, on a day by day, like going back to what you were saying, that walking on the edge of a cliff thing is a real thing. That's.
I think if you go, I think I've broken my leg. They'll do an X-ray. You have or you haven't. If you have broken your leg, we're going to stick it in a cast, and it will take X amount of time to heal. And after that, we'll take the cast off, and then you'll have physiotherapy, and then you're on.
Yeah.
As you said, okay, so am I depressed? Have I got bipolar? Have I got anxiety? Have I got this? Have I got this? Which one? We don't know. As you said, there's no blood test.
No.
So you're working it all out. And then when you do get your bipolar, it's a very personal thing, because it's based on your life and various factors within your life. So they cannot do anything more than that without it being very expensive, personal, I want to say full-on counselling with more behind it.
Yeah.
So it's not helpful, but I do kind of get it. And if you are, I'm going to use the term like the elbowy parents. Yes, if you're one of those who are going to go, no, I'm going to get this sorted, you will be able to. But if you're not one of those people, if you have no idea where to go and you haven't got the support around you, it's not good.
No, that's the thing, you see. Like, I get, like, you know, like I said, with those psychiatric nurses from the crisis team where I used to live in Gloucestershire, they left me at home because, you know, my husband was there and I had my parents, you know. But if I hadn't had that, if I was on my own, then goodness knows where I'd be now.
Yeah.
Right. And at the time they said, oh, you know, have you made any plans in terms of like suicidality? So sorry, trigger alert here, everybody. And I said, yeah, I'm going to throw myself off a motorway bridge. And he said, oh, have you made plans? I went, yeah, I have. I know which one, blah, 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 and everything. He went, have you written a note? I went, no, I haven't. He went, okay, we're not really that high risk then, are you? And I'm like, okay, are you saying that because I've got people around me? And he went, no, I'm saying that because you're really lucid, because you can explain to me exactly what you're seeing and you know that they're not there. And I went, I know, but I'm still seeing them though. Right. Yes. I can give a history. I can give a history. Yes, I can give it. Just because I can give a history doesn't mean I'm fine.
No.
You know, but people have this kind of like, you must be howling at the moon in order. And like the chances of you getting sectioned are so... these days you're not getting in a hospital unless you've done a crime or something, you know, like you have to, the thresholds are so high now than they were when I was 22. Not the
space and the resources just aren't there.
No, they've just got no beds. They've got no beds to put you in, you know. And it's like, you know, so that's the situation. Sorry, I don't mean to be grim to anyone who's listening who's, you know, going through a diagnostic process at the moment. But there isn't anything, right? Unless you can afford to pay for private. Now, I have really, if you're going to have therapy, you're probably going to need it for periodic sessions, like 6 months here or 12 months there throughout your life. Yeah. And you need something sort of person-centered. For me, I found, you know, trauma-informed therapy really, really helpful. I've had the same therapist on and off since 2017. And that's made a massive difference. But I have to pay that out of my own money, and it's £50 a go. And that's cheap, you know, because a lot of times, because I've been with her such a long time, but, you know, it can be 60, 70, 80, you know, a therapist in London is going to be like 90 quid.
And more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, and that's the thing, there isn't really any support. So like where it leaves us in terms of like people who are working in schools is there does need to be a lot more recognition of just how difficult it is. So, you know, you seem fine isn't really good enough because you have no idea what's going on behind someone's forehead.
No. Did you see it was on social media to see it was I think it's Norwich Football Club's mental health advert?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, it was really nice and it was really well done. It was like these two blokes who have the seats next to each other in the stands. I'm pretty sure it's Norwich Football Club. And they sit there and one bloke's, you know, just a bit glum. He's just like, "You right, mate?" He's like, "Yeah." And he's all like hyper and all that lot. And it just goes on every time. The weather's changing, different match. And when they score, the bloke jumps up and down and the bloke's going, "Yeah, nice." But he's just a bit, you can see he's so sullen. And he's just... And you're going, oh, he's not happy. The end of the advert, he's putting a T-shirt on the chair for his mate who's no longer with us. Oh. And although he looked fine, although he went there and loved that moment, actually he was kind of overcompensating, hiding. That was his high point, and the rest of the week wasn't. We have no idea. It's really hard.
No, and the thing is, like, if you ever hear anything about people who've sadly, you know, died by suicide, then what people will always say is, oh, but they were out with me for dinner the other day. They were laughing and joking. And there's masking.
Yeah.
Because if it's your friend's 45th birthday, you're not going to go there going, no, do you know, actually, mate, like, I don't think I'm going to see you again. You're not going to do that. Because you don't want to completely ruin the situation for them, because you still have like humility and you still have like politeness. Just gonna sort of-
We're going to have a pause, Tony. If you could edit this bit out and we'll continue the conversation when Catrina comes back, that would be lovely. Yeah, we have no idea what mental health looks like.
No,
for
we
each
don't.
person.
We don't, right? And it's this thing is as well, like I said, okay. So circling back to the idea that bipolar is a neurodivergent condition. Oh, I can mask it. I'm not going to tell you. I can hear the bricks moving in the wall. I didn't tell anyone until it got to the point where I just couldn't stand it any longer, right? Even my family who I was living with, I didn't tell them that this was happening. Because it's quite embarrassing.
Because you knew it wasn't real. You knew I know it's not there, but I'm hearing it. If I tell anyone, they'll think I'm weird. So what's the point in telling them? It's not going to change anything. So you end up down that route, don't you?
Yeah, and I've been here before, and I'm going to end up speaking to the crisis team, and they're going to tell me to go for a long walk and a bath of hot tea again. It's the same loop. Like, it's like, what can they actually do? They're not going to do anything. They can't do anything.
Right. I'd like to say, until you build like a bath with like tank tracks that you can fill with tea, and then the bath goes on a long walk with you in it, until you've tried that.
I did taking the bath for a long walk. I hadn't thought of that.
That might be you misheard it the entire time. It's take a bath of tea for a long walk.
Oh, and then my bipolar will be cured. Hurrah! I won't be manic anymore. The end. Fixed it. Yay!
So, before we wrap up on this long episode already, how has being bipolar impacted your work life?
Professionally, right, okay. So for the first... Well, okay, I had that manic episode during my PGCE. I failed my PGCE. I had to resit. I didn't tell them why. I just told them I got ill.
Yep.
Right? And I remember, like, when I eventually passed, the head of my course came to do my, like, final lesson observation. He went, "What happened? What happened to you last term? What happened?" And I went, "Oh, I had a car crash." And they all assume it was physical, so they didn't ask any more questions because people don't ask questions about that. So passed the PGC, got on with my work life, didn't tell anyone within work, never ever told anybody that I had a mental health difficulty until 2017 when I had a huge breakdown. No, that wasn't bipolar, I wasn't manic or depressed at that point. I know now that was neurodivergent burnout because of ADHD, which was unrecognized at that point, even by me, in fact, because like masking. And then it got to the point where I could not hide it any longer.
Yep.
So I was at that point working as an advisory teacher. I couldn't hide it any longer. I was very unwell at work. I had to take 3 months off. And then I went back in, and they expect you to hit the ground running when you do that. I did get some counselling from them, like 6 or 7 sessions of counselling from them through like the health thingy that they had through the council. And that was helpful. Not anywhere near long enough, but it kind of like, it took the edge off a bit. And then the following year I broke my leg, so I had to have another 3 months off.
Ouch.
They were much more understanding about the leg breaking than they were about the mental health difficulty.
We've still got a long way to go on that, haven't we?
Yeah, and then, life happened and I ended up getting a divorce, and then I just couldn't keep it together anymore at all. And they weren't as understanding as I would have liked them to have been, if I'm honest. There were some colleagues who were very, very understanding, who were lovely, absolutely delightful, and really like just went to the ends of the earth to try and get that. But a lot of people were quite dismissive of it. Like, loads of people get divorced. I've had one. Like, well, it's not that really. It's just that's the final straw sort of thing. So, yeah, so I ended up leaving that job. Then the next school that I went to were really, really understanding, fantastic. And I was very much, sort of out and proud about it. And they were brilliant. And I worked with them part-time up until I set up my own company. And now I'm basically bipolar for a living. So, I've made it the basis of my entire career. And I do things like have lovely chats on podcasts with you as part of my work. And, I am professionally neurodivergent. So I turned it to...
What is unprofessionally neurodivergent?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe where you like mask it the whole time or something.
That's the thing is, I got diagnosed with ADHD and autism February last year, but I've known for years that
Yeah.
I never was fitting in, but I wasn't one. And when I found out it could be both, I was like, okay, that's making much more sense. But I'm really lucky because the 23 years I've been here at B Squared, I have shaped B Squared. I've shaped my life how it suits me. So I've set a lot of my own rules. I've made the company do certain things, which is nightmare when you're doing the paperwork of, do you have things you put off? It's like, well, no, because I've got rid of all the jobs I hate to everyone else.
Yeah.
So I've been really lucky that I've really shaped it so I can use all my strengths.
Yeah.
And I do, as I'm getting older, I didn't really get burnout when I was younger. I seem to be able to just go through it. It's like you said, when you're young, I could be up for 48 hours, just a bit of Pro Plus, and off you went.
Oh, yeah, Pro Plus. This is the thing. I don't caffeinate now either, right? Because caffeine is just bad. Like, once when I lived in Germany when I was an assistant teacher, because German coffee is really nice, really, really nice. So I had a percolator in my flat, and I drank the entire pot, and I was up for 48 hours. Because like I said, I'm really sensitive to medication that includes caffeine. So I had to quit. I had to stop caffeine completely. So
I can't feel caffeine. I cannot feel it.
But you see, that's the thing, because this is the thing. It's amazing, isn't it? Because like ADHD is supposed to have the opposite effect, isn't it? But with me, because of the bipolar and everything else,
Yeah.
I don't have the ADHD immunity to caffeine.
I used to literally go out, double vodkas and Red Bull, 10 of those, 15 of those a night, go home, straight to sleep. Not a problem.
Yeah, but there's loads of people. There's loads of ADHD people who tell me that. But I'm the opposite. I'm just like, I am just ridiculous. Like I can't, like I've got hay fever at the moment. Can't take antihistamines because I'll be asleep. Even the non-drowsy stuff.
My wife's like that. My wife, she has, and non-drowsy, she's starting to fall asleep. It's even if she can't sleep, she'll have some antihistamine to help her sleep.
A lot of people do that. Not that we could possibly prescribe that.
Do not do that.
No, this is a thing people do. We're aware of it, but we are not in any way advocating it.
But can I just say thank you for teaching me about bipolar?
It's all right. It's a bit of a life story, I know. But 49 years, I tried to sort of fit it into slightly more than an hour. I think sort of like in conclusion, there isn't enough awareness. One of the reasons why I wanted to say don't call me crazy is because I do get a bit like that gets bandied about quite a lot, like especially on the internet. Yeah, Brexit was a really good one. People got called crazy on both sides of the Brexit. You're crazy, you're a lunatic. People have put up like little gifs or whatever of people in straitjackets, etc. Whenever there's like a massive atrocity on the news, they'll go mental health. Right. Well, do you know what? Right. I'm bipolar and I've never shot 3 people with a crossbow or whatever. I never committed a crime at all. Speeding ticket, went to a naughty driver's course once or twice. But other than that, no crimes. So people going, oh, yeah, there's no such thing as criminal insanity. Right. You are unwell. Maybe you end up doing a situation that's reckless, but you're not doing a crime because you are bipolar. You're doing a crime because of a result of not having any boundaries. And that really gets to me. That really gets to me. The way that like crazy is bounded about, like because someone has a different opinion to you, therefore they're crazy or an idiot, or a loony or whatever, and that really, really bothers me. So I think one of the things that would make my life a lot easier is if people moved away calling people cray or nuts or bananas or whatever, just because they voted a different way in the Brexit thing.
It's the thing I read recently, or someone told me, I literally went, I think I'd forgotten that, but it's a really important thing. Every time you go into a discussion or an argument, you should be going in willing to change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think these days, I have my viewpoint, they are wrong. Yeah. And that's that. And there is no, you're not even listening to their point of view. You're not even listening to what they're saying. You're not even thinking, have I misunderstood? None of that. It's just, this is my belief. That's your belief. You're wrong.
Yeah. And also you must be wrong because you've got mental health issues.
Yeah.
Right. And that's putting it politely, because usually they'll say you're a loony, right? Or whatever. The loony left, the crazy right or whatever. Right. you know, it just really, that really bothers me, the way it's just used in a pejorative sense. And, you know, and there are bits of it that are hilarious. Like, I've laughed at my own. Like, during this thing, right? It's one of the things my therapist always says to me is like, oh, Katrina, you make a comedy out of a tragedy. And I go, yes, it's my coping strategy. It's better than a warm bath and a long walk and all that malarkey. I just make a joke out of it because it is really quite funny. I know there wasn't actually a lion coming out of the wall. But, you know, at the same time, it is really serious, and it is like, it's life-threatening. We've talked about that in this podcast. It is actually a life-threatening condition. It is as serious as cancer. People die. People are dying of this. And without actual awareness and support, they're going to continue to die. So let's not just call people crazy because they voted for Brexit or against Brexit, or, you know, they have a differing view to a football match than you.
They have that view for a reason. Generally, if you went into their backstory and all these sorts of things and looked through their life, you would be able to understand how they got to that belief.
Yeah. And it's fair enough because it's an opinion, right? You're allowed to have opinions.
Yes. I will not go into what I think, but that's a whole other thing because I could just start ranting about different things.
No,
but
exactly.
We're not. So I'm going to thank you for coming on the show today. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you for letting me tell my story. I've really enjoyed it.
It's really interesting, kind of bit more understanding for me, or a lot more understanding on bipolar, kind of that journey. But I'm also really like, especially at the end, that you got a lot of support. And I think it'd be interesting to kind of, if you went back to that first school who didn't support you, if you went there now, would they be more supportive? Is it a time thing? Or is it some schools are really great at this and some schools are still really bad at it?
I think it's a bit of both, really. Like, there is some schools, like, I tend to find that special schools, and, you know, I mean, like, I was in SEN, you know, people are a bit more understanding because they do inclusion anyway.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of people who've got neurodivergent brains who work in SEND, you know. That's the next podcast, though, when we talk about neurodivergent teachers. Like, a really high proportion of people work in SEND because they have a bit more understanding themselves, and they're a bit more understanding of mental health, because even if they haven't actually got mental health difficulties themselves, they can understand how you would. Yes.
And also, I think you're doing all that inclusive thinking for the children, and you really think openly, then it's easy to do it for the staff.
Yeah.
Makes definitely a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you've given me a couple of links, as always. You've given me links to Neurodivergent Teachers Network group on Facebook. So we're sharing all of those, and also Katrina's contact details. And you'll find all of those in the show notes, wherever you listen to the podcast or on the website. And as always, thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't subscribed already, click on that subscribe button and follow us on all the social medias, on Twitter at The Sanecast, on Facebook, The Sanecast, on Instagram, The Sanecast, and we're even looking at TikTok at the moment, which I'm struggling with. But that's just me being old and not wanting to dance. And if you're looking for a simple, secure way to capture and share evidence of learning, or a way to capture pupil voice, a way to celebrate and share achievements, or a simple, safe way to communicate with parents, you need to have a look at Eversense. Eversense is our evidence system that does so much more to help boost parental engagement. To find out more about Eversense, visit the B Squared website, and you'll also find out about our online training, our CPD, read our blogs, watch our webinars, and more. You'll find a link to the website and a link to book a meeting with me so I can take you through Eversense or answer any questions you have in the show notes. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sanecast. It is goodbye from me.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.